I'ma do my thing, 'cause I'ma do my thing, and I'ma do my thing, and I'ma do my thing.
Hi everyone, I'm Paloma, and today I'm going to show you how to make this super cute kimono for less than $10. So if you want to learn how to make it, just keep watching. This is what you'll need. 1.5 to 2 yards of your desired fabric, preferably chiffon or sheer, any lace or crochet trim, a rotary cutter or fabric scissors, some measuring tape, a needle and thread if that's what you want to use, fabric glue if you'd rather use that, or a sewing machine, which is what I'm going to use. You'll also need some pins and an iron if your fabric allows you to use one. Here's what it looks like all laid out. Here's the guide for my size. I suggest you pause it so you can see what it says. Okay, for the back piece, from elbow to elbow, it's 46 inches. The armholes are 10 inches. From the armpit to the elbow, it's 10 inches. And then it's 23 inches from the armpit to the thigh. So you're going to want to cut it out according to how I wrote the inches, and if you want it bigger or smaller, you can adjust it for whatever size you are. So the left and right front pieces are exactly identical. You can trace one after you cut it if you want. So the whole thing is 27 inches lengthwise. It's 20 inches width. The armhole is 10 inches, and then from armpit to elbow is 10 inches. So pretty much the same thing. There's 17 inches from armpit to hip because it's going to be a high-low, so it's different from the back piece. So you're going to fold your fabric in half lengthwise, and then you're going to make sure that half of it is at least 33 inches, and if not, you're going to make sure one side's 33 inches and the other is 27 inches. If you don't have enough fabric for that, then you need a bigger piece of fabric. And then from there, you're just going to cut wherever you folded. Go ahead and toss one half to the side, and we're going to use one for now. Make sure it's as long as you want it and make adjustments as needed. Now spread it out, and on the long side, you're going to measure 46 inches, mark it, and then cut it. Alright, so once you cut it, you're just going to throw the excess to the side. Now once I've done that, I'm just going to lay it out flat, lengthwise I guess, and I'm cutting off the trim that has the logo of the brand. You might not need to do this if your fabric doesn't have that. Now I'm measuring the lengths of my pattern, and I'm just marking it with a cut of scissors. If you'd rather mark it with chalk or a pen, you can go ahead and do that as well. So now you're just going to cut your measurements, and if you want to mark a straight line with chalk, I suggest you do. I didn't do it because I could follow the pattern for a straight line. If you have a pattern like mine, that should be easy to do, but if you don't, I suggest marking it with chalk, like using a ruler, so that you don't mess up. So my camera cut off when I was filming, but this is what the thing looks like folded after I cut it out. And then I'm going to show it to you unfolded in like 2 seconds. So this is what it looks like unfolded, and that is the back piece to our kimono. So now you're literally just going to do the same thing. You're going to cut the measurements of the other 2 front pieces now, using the other half of the fabric that we cut. And I seriously lost my scissors in the middle of filming this, so I started using a rotary cutter, but I don't have a mat. So I was doing it on a cardboard, and it wasn't really so successful. So if you use a rotary cutter, use a mat, and don't lose your scissors. So I'm just going to keep cutting the right measurements. Right now I'm just cutting the full length of it, and then I'm going to start cutting the sleeves right now. So yeah, I'm just cutting and cutting and cutting. So now that I'm all finished, this is what it looks like laid out. Okay, so it gets a little complicated here. So basically my chiffon fabric is reversible, so it's the same from the front and back. So if yours isn't, you're going to make sure the back piece, the piece for the back, is facing the right side up. And then you're going to place one of the front pieces on it right side down. So you're like making a sandwich backwards. Really complicated, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Basically what I'm saying is that the back side needs to be right side out, and the front side that you're putting on top of it needs to be technically inside out, how you would wear it inside out. So if you picked the whole piece up as a whole, it would be completely inside out. So now I'm just basically pinning the pieces together. So I'm starting from the top because that's the easiest for me to work with. So I'm pinning from right where the pieces meet all the way to the end of the sleeve. Oh, and by the way, I just cut off that little logo again, and it kind of made my sleeves uneven, so make sure you do that before you start. And also, if you have a needle and thread and that's what you're using, or if you're using fabric glue, you can totally skip this step and just immediately glue it or sew it together from right where I'm pinning it. And if you have a sewing machine and you can hold it really well in place, you don't need to pin it either. I just like to pin it to be safe. Okay, so now I'm just going to take it over to the sewing machine. And if you're not using a sewing machine, you can totally just skip all of this. You don't need to watch this. Just do this with a thread and needle or fabric glue and just do it exactly where I pinned it. By the way, I am using black thread and I am just using a really basic stitch just because I don't know really how to use any other stitches. So I'm just doing that. So now I'm all done, and I'm just going to show you the seam. This is the outside, and this is what it looks like when it's on. It just looks like a normal seam. And now I'm just going to pin and sew the bottom part of the sleeve, exactly like how I did for the top. Again, if you didn't use a sewing machine, you can just go ahead and sew it from there or glue it from there. Alright, so now that you've sewn both parts of the sleeve, you are just gonna start pinning the side. Alright, so once you have completely pinned and sewn, or just sewn, your front piece, you're just going to do the exact same thing to the other side. And then you have your two front pieces attached. So this part gets a little tricky. I'm showing you a quick glimpse of the sleeve. Now I'm working on one of the raw edges in the front, kind of like the front cardigan part, and I am just folding it over twice and then pinning it to sew it like for a hem. But I found that my chiffon was really stubborn, and afterwards I figured out an easier way would be to fold it once and then sew it, and then fold it again and sew it to have a double fold. But if you're gluing it or doing it with a thread and needle, you should be fine because you don't have to pin it. For this video, I was really stubborn and I just kept trying really hard to double fold it and pin it, which if that works for you, you can do it, but I found that it would be easier just to fold it once, sew it, and then fold it again and sew over that. I don't know if I mentioned this, but when you're hemming, you need to fold into the inside of the kimono. So now I'm just going to go ahead and sew all the way down, but at some point I got tired of pinning it, so I just held it in place as I sewed it, which is another alternative if you do not like pinning like me. Okay, so this is it all laid out, and it wasn't equal from the way it was at the fabric store, so I had to cut the edge, and that caused me to make it not high-low anymore, but if you want to make it high-low, just go ahead and add a curve. By now you should have the trick of hemming, so now we're just going to hem the sleeves. If you want to just hem it and leave normal sleeves, you can go ahead and do that, or if you want to add a trim like I am, you're just going to grab the trim and you're going to place it directly on top of where you fold it, and you're just going to pin it. Make sure that the trim is on the inside out part of the fold. You don't want it on the right side out part of the fold, if that makes sense, because it's going to be turned inside out and then the lace is just going to kind of peek through. Short version, you're just going to put the trim on top of where you pin it as always. Again, if you're using glue, don't need to pin it, and if you're sewing it by hand, you don't have to do that either. And if you are using a sewing machine, just go ahead and put it on your machine and sew it. You want to be careful because it is round, so you want to take it a little bit more slowly. Alright, now you're all done with your kimono. And if you liked this tutorial, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I hope you like my DIY video. And if you'd like to see another video next week, just comment down below what DIY you'd like to see, whether it's bows or bandeaus or shorts. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching.